Does healing come from something outside of yourself, or does healing come from within? You are hurting yourself or healing yourself, and it's truly your choice. But since this is the last episode, I want to go over the episodes before and talk about what we've covered. Juicing and colostrum, vitamin C, vitamin D3 and turmeric, milk, soy, sugar, aspartame, exercise, bottled water, the magic of water, meds, pills in general, and meds, SSRIs. And although this is just basic information, you know, it's all pertaining to the same thing, the human health, human body, human mind. And the most important point is the human mind. If you believe that juicing is going to be your savior and cure whatever ailment you have, or if you believe vitamin C, or if you believe chemotherapy or radiation, that's the most important thing, is that you actually believe that it works for you. And there's a few points that I hope that we all think about when we are getting treatment. I know how it is. I have a hard time thinking in those turmoil times. But let's think about the things that help our body heal first, and the things that attack us later. So let's do the less harmful treatments first and not make decisions out of fear. You've got to believe that whatever you are using is going to work. Now, the subject of today's show, placebo and nocebo.
Now, you've all heard of the placebo effect before, when something with no known therapeutic value can actually make people feel better. It's a great trick our minds play on us, that by believing and expecting something to work, it actually does. But what's weird is that the strength of the effect can differ for some really strange reasons. For example, the same placebo can treat pain half as well as aspirin, while at the same time treating pain half as well as morphine. Morphine's a much more powerful painkiller, but a placebo is half as effective as both? Saying a placebo will reduce pain reduces pain, but saying that the same placebo will increase pain increases pain. Believing that a placebo will make you feel better will make you feel better. Believing that it won't has the opposite effect. Now, placebos aren't just pills. They can be creams, injections, surgeries, or drinks. You can even get placebo buttons. They don't actually do anything, but they sure as hell make you feel like you're in control. But not all placebos are equal. The effect of the placebo is bigger when the pill itself is bigger, or if you have 2 instead of 1, or 2 once a day instead of 1 twice a day. And a capsule will usually beat a pill, and a syringe will usually beat a capsule, and anything with a big ass science machine can outperform any of them. A plain pill works worse than a branded one. A discounted pill works worse than a pricey one, and even a pill in a plain box does worse than one that's all shiny and shit. Placebos that are blue work best as downers, and placebos that are red are better as uppers. Studies have shown that people who take their meds on a regular basis are less likely to die than those that don't, even if those meds are all placebos. You can even get addicted to placebos. In one study, a group of women took placebos for more than 5 years. 40% of them suffered withdrawals afterwards. In fact, the effect of placebos can be so strong that some people want them banned from sports. But I mean, how would you even test for that? Placebos don't even seem to work from place to place. For example, in Germany, using a placebo to treat ulcers works better than anywhere else in Europe. But using a placebo that treats hypertension doesn't work nearly as well as it does for its neighbours. Now remember that all of this is about comparing things that both have nothing medically effective in them, which goes to show that a placebo isn't about what's in it, but about the beliefs that we load onto it. Our minds create the medicine, and that is pretty freaking weird.
From UFOs to ghost and psychic powers, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now and learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Here are the facts. A placebo may look like real medicine, but it isn't. Placebos are made of inert substances like sugar and used in clinical drug trials to prove the efficacy of a real drug. In clinical trials, one group of patients receives an experimental medicine and a second group receives a placebo. In theory, this gives scientists an objective way to measure whether a medicine actually has an effect on a patient. These double-blind, placebo-controlled tests are used throughout the pharmaceutical industry, and a drug must beat a placebo in at least 2 trials to gain FDA approval. Seems simple, except that is, for the placebo effect. Some patients who take the fake medicine also experience improvement in their symptoms. Sometimes, placebos even outperform real treatments. While scientists don't fully understand what causes the placebo effect, we do know one thing: it may be increasing. Here's where it gets crazy. It's strange to think that a person's beliefs may generate measurable effects. It's even weirder to think that this effect may be increasing across the board. FDA drug testing requires 3 phases of trials, and by the second phase, these drugs are tested against placebos. Approximately half of all the drugs that fail in late-stage trials fail because they simply can't outperform placebos. So what exactly makes a placebo generate some of the same effects as real medicine? A number of factors can influence the effectiveness of a placebo, including a pill's color or the location of the testing facility. For example, when Valium is tested in France, it outperforms the placebo. But when it is tested in the United States, Valium tends to fail the placebo test. Placebo research has been conducted across the world, and the findings have challenged some of the industry's most basic assumptions. The data on antidepressant drugs can be particularly disturbing. Since the 1980s, 2 large-scale analyses of antidepressant trials have shown a significant increase in the placebo effect. According to drug makers, it's not that the old meds are getting weaker. It's more like the placebo effect itself is increasing. Physicians are intimately familiar with placebos. In a survey by the National Institutes of Health, half of the physicians surveyed admitted that they've treated patients with placebos. The implications of the placebo effect are wide-reaching. Most immediately, it highlights how much we still have to learn about the relationship between a patient's mind and body. And there's still the possibility that an unknown variable could generate this perceived rise in effectiveness. There's also no question that the placebo effect could spell trouble for drug makers. This apparent growth in the placebo effect could undermine the FDA's testing procedures, and it could also mean that some drugs currently on the market, if retested in different locations, might fail to outperform fake medicine. Some researchers are attempting to compile data from drug companies to measure the placebo effect, yet these companies are highly secretive about drug testing data. Whether this is simply due to good business practices or a fear of what the studies may find, it's clear there's something the drug companies don't want you to know.
Okay, although that was nice candy and a little tongue-in-cheek, let's get into a little bit more about the placebo effect and nocebo effect.
Something else you talk about in the book, which I found quite fascinating, was the placebo effect and the nocebo effect.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of people understand what the placebo effect is. And what is this? Well, it's interesting because medical science has revealed that from 1/3 to 2/3, which is significant, of all healing, whether it's drug-related or surgery or whatever healing process, the healing didn't come about from the process. The healing came about because the person believed the process was going to heal them. So if I give you this brand new drug and it's purple colored because that makes it really special, you know, and it's funny because there is a drug, a purple drug, and they said, it's purple. And everybody's like, oh, wow, that's got to be special. But people believe that the drug holds this effect. And you give a person this drug, and all of a sudden they heal themselves, and they say, yeah, the drug did it. And then you tell them later, but it was just a sugar pill. That healing didn't come from the drug. It came from the belief in the drug. So the belief in healing is what heals you.
It comes back to the mind again, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's again the power of belief. In this case, it's a very positive belief that this procedure, drug, or whatever is going to heal me. But what people haven't talked about, because everyone knows about the placebo effect, is that the placebo effect is based on a positive thinking. What is the consequence of negative thinking? Well, science has a term for it, but it hasn't really come out in the public. It's called the nocebo effect. And the nocebo effect has been revealed by science that a negative thought can not only make you ill, but a negative thought could also kill you. You can be scared to death in a real sense, okay? And why is that important? Because it turns out it's not just the positive thought of a placebo that's influential. The negative thought works the same way with the same power, but in the opposite direction. So basically, it's not placebo, nocebo. It comes down simply this. It's the power of thought. And a positive thought will move you in a healing direction, and a negative thought will move you into an illness direction. But before I get off that topic, I don't want people to go out there in the audience and go, oh, one of those positive thinking kind of guys. And it's like, it's more than just positive thinking. It's a commitment and an intention of positive thinking. It also really needs the support of your subconscious belief. Because if your subconscious belief is going, oh, that new age weirdo stuff, if that's what your subconscious is programmed to believe, and yet your conscious mind is the one that says, I will think positive thoughts, and I go back to the data. Only 5% of your life is coming from the conscious mind. So if you're only entertaining a positive thought with your conscious mind, you're only contributing 5% of that to your life. 95% of your life is still coming from the subconscious. And if the subconscious doesn't hold those beliefs, then you're actually fighting yourself and not likely to realize the expression of a positive thought.
So let's look at this again practically. So someone's not feeling well, they've got, I don't know, they've got the flu, or they've got something wrong with their stomach or something. What should they practically do? They should presumably go to the doctor and get a diagnosis. Would you go along with that? I'm just trying to see where this goes in day-to-day life.
Well, I wouldn't say don't go to a doctor, but I say before you go to a doctor, just look around and think about this. What's going on in your life? Where the stress is coming from? Because it's almost your physiological expression is a complement to your life experiences. Those people that are happy are healthy. As I said, when you're in the honeymoon, you didn't get sick in the honeymoon. That's when you're absolutely healthy. But when you got caught back up into real life, that's when illnesses start to occur. So we always look at, oh, I must be sick, there must be something wrong with my biology, when it turns out it didn't begin with your biology. Only about 2% of illness is actually connected to genetics, let's say. 98% of illness is not just genetics, it's environment. So when a person says, oh, I have the breast cancer gene, and people think, oh, I'm going to get breast cancer. And I say, well, wait. 50% of women that have the breast cancer gene get cancer. What about the 50% that have the gene and didn't get the cancer? And we never study that side. We only study the side that got the cancer. And you find out, well, what is it that the 50% do that don't have the cancer yet have the gene? What's different? The answer is their lifestyle is different. Their stresses, their fears, their concerns are not the same as the one that get the illness. The genes are like give you a propensity to get a disease, but that propensity is based on how you perceive life. And it's interesting, studies show that when children get adopted into a cancer family, the adopted child will get the cancer with the same percentage or probability as any of the natural sibling. And you say, but yeah, but the child came from totally different genetic stock. And the point is, yes, it wasn't the genes that promoted the cancer, it was the lifestyle that promoted the cancer, especially the lifestyle of stress. And then I say, well, if stress is causing lifestyle, and I look around at the world and I go, my God, no wonder everybody's sick. Every day is filled with more stress than the day before. And if you buy into the stress, you take that disharmonious vibration, essentially. Bring it into your life, and you end up with disharmony inside your body. Your life is a reflection of what you see.
Yeah, it's a question of going back a few steps. That's what I'm hearing, and just looking to see, well, I'm not feeling well, and I had the same thing last year. What's behind that? Am I happy in my life? What is emotionally happening?
Absolutely.
What is happening physically? Am I doing the right things to support my body?
Absolutely.
It's a fundamental look, isn't it?
I don't want to say don't go to the doctor, so I'll go back just 20 years ago. With that belief, you do create the miracles. The miracles of spontaneous remission, for example. A person terminally ill who all of a sudden says, I'm not buying this. I'm going to change my vision of life. And the moment they change their perception, they have what's called a spontaneous remission. Again, that would be called a miracle, but what was it? Taking full control of consciousness and manifesting a life of being fully conscious and present, and seeing what brings harmony into your life, and avoiding or eliminating as best you can any of the disharmony that exists on the outside, because disharmony will make disharmony inside.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about a terminal illness here. I'm talking about how can I make myself feel better in the next 30 minutes while I sit down to work out this writing deadline and so on. And things like you talk about in your book, things like meditation, things like getting quiet. But even more than that, and we talked about this at the break, it's like, what kind of energy field do you find yourself in? So this isn't just like good stuff to read about and to write about. This is something that you can really go inside, whoever you are listening, whatever your life situation is. You have to make decisions. I don't go for physicals. I don't want anybody looking at me and telling me this, this test is up, this one is down, this is an indication. You got a 17% of living another 3 years, you got an 18%. I don't want to hear anything like that. I figure that the less I know about what is wrong, and the more I believe about what I have the power to do something about, isn't that changing your perception? Isn't that entering into that subconscious world and putting your attention on something that you want rather than on something you don't want? Albert Einstein once said that the most important decision you'll ever make is to decide once and for all whether you live in a universe that is supportive, that supports you and is friendly, or whether you live in a universe that is hostile and is non-supportive. Thing called neuro-linguistic programming, and NLP is nothing more than finding, with depressed patients, what we have found with people who are severely depressed and who've been on Prozac and so on, what we do is we take them off the Prozac and they measure the brain and the chemistry of the brain, and then they will ask the person to no longer identify with an event in their life that is causing them to be depressed, but instead to step outside of their body, to become the observer to it, and instead of saying, okay, here's another thing that's causing me to be depressed, you say, you put your attention on something else, and the thing you put your attention on is, there goes my brain again misfiring. It is doing something that it has been trained to do, and you're the observer, you're just watching it. And when people then are trained to put their attention on any moment in their life, that they were happy, that they were fulfilled, that they were, as you mentioned, that they were in love, that the chemist, then they measure the chemistry through an MRI, they measure the chemistry of their brain, and their brain has changed exactly the same way that taking one of these pills does, except there's no side effects.
One of the biggest obvious facts that always gets me upset is Prozac, one of the biggest selling drugs on the planet, has been verified in a laboratory testing by the drug companies to be no more effective than a sugar pill. And yet it's billions of dollars in this, and that's because people believe in Prozac. But that's called the placebo effect. And yet the side effects from Prozac are disastrous. Your own brain is your best pharmacy. Everything in your head will fix everything in your body. And that's all we really need to know, but we need to re-educate ourselves to access that. So the fate of the cell was controlled not by the genes, the fate of the cell was controlled by the environment. We see ourselves as single individual entities. This is a misperception. You are not a single entity, you are a community, because the living things are called cells, and you are made up of about 50 trillion cells. So your body is a community. And why that's relevant is when I would work in my cell cultures and I'd take my culture dish and put it into a bad environment, the cells will physically get sick. You can see that. They'd stop growing and they start dying. And then I take that culture dish, same dish, move it out of that bad environment, put it into a good environment. The cells would immediately recover, start growing and reproducing and flourishing. Why is that important? Because think about this as who you are. You are skin-covered petri dishes. You have 50 trillion cells in your petri dish under your skin. You take your petri dish and put it in this negative environment, I can assure you, I already know what's going to happen. You're going to cause those cells to get sick. Not that the cells are organically sick, they're just complementing what the environment is. And the relevance, take your skin-covered petri dish, move it into a better environment, and the cells will immediately get well. And the relevance about that is you're not a victim, you're a master. You are the controller of this, and we were not teaching that in school. All we were teaching is, victims, you don't heal yourself, somebody else does it, and that was totally wrong.
Okay, if you can't understand what they're talking about and it's just too much, you might as well leave now. But for those of you who can understand what's going on, we're about to go further down the rabbit hole and see what some would call miracles.
I'm going to share a story with you. It's a true story. It's a story of the birth of two baby girls, twins, and they were born prematurely, 7 weeks premature. There is a practice in the United States when babies are born prematurely. The first thing they do is separate the babies. Now, can you imagine living in the womb of your mother for 6 or 7 or 8 months and living close to another being, your twin brother or your twin sister, and hearing the heartbeat of your mother every day and the heartbeat of your twin every day, and suddenly you're taken from that environment. And the first thing that happens is you're separated, and they put one twin, one premature baby in one incubator, and the second baby in a second incubator under the hot lights of the intensive care unit in the hospital. They put them in separate rooms, lying on their stomachs face down. That's what they do with the new babies, the premature babies. So these two baby girls came into the world. And this is what happened. They were separated, taken to different rooms, and immediately one of the little girls began to fail. Her vital signs began to drop. She was dying. There was a nurse who was working at the time. And the nurse said, I must do something or this baby will die. She said, I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to break the protocol. And she reached in, picked up the young baby that was dying. She took her into the intensive care unit with her sister, and you know where the story's going. You know what happened. She put the weaker girl in the incubator with the stronger girl. But this is where the story gets really interesting. And this is what tells me what I'm about to share with you is something that we are born with. It's not something that we learn, because here is what happened. They put the weaker baby girl in with the stronger one. And immediately the stronger one reached out with her arm and placed her arm around the shoulders of her baby sister. And the minute she did that, the instant she did that, her sister's vital signs stabilized. And she got stronger and stronger and stronger, and they both lived. Okay, can you feel that feeling? Can you feel that? See, I can see you're holding your heart. Some of you have tears in your eyes. Why? That feeling is a language. That feeling is a power that lives inside of your body. If I had walked onto this stage and said, now, have that feeling, it may have been hard to do. but you saw an image that gave you a reason for that feeling. You're still crying. It's a powerful story. It's a powerful image. It's true. And the two girls lived, and they're doing very well today. That feeling is something that does not happen in your mind. It happens in your heart. The image and the story went directly to your heart. It bypassed your mind. It bypassed the filters. It bypassed the logic, the questions, the conditioning, the judgment. It was just a feeling. Today, modern science is beginning to understand that that feeling that happens inside of our bodies has a direct effect on the stuff our world is made of, on the atoms and the molecules of our physical world. It's the power of human emotion. It's the power of human feeling. You felt that this morning when you saw the two baby girls. Isn't that an amazing picture? An amazing picture. I love this picture because it tells us who we really are. They are too young to have learned this from their parents. This is inherent in our being. We are beings who love, we nurture, we care. We are born to love in this world, and this shows precisely. They are only a few hours old, and they know this already. This is why I like this picture. That feeling, that is the feeling that reminds you of the power in your heart. It reminds you, as Neville said, that there is a power within you that nothing on this earth is stronger than. What you will see is the woman is awake, she is conscious, she has no anesthetic, she believes in the process, she believes in what is happening. And there are 3 practitioners who are trained to create the feeling in their bodies as if the woman is already healed. And then on the computer screen, we will see 2 images. One image is before the healing, and one image is actual time, real time, so we can see the healing happen. And while the healing is happening, you will hear the practitioners chant a word. And I want you to know there is no magic in the word. It could be any word. But this word is the word that they have chosen that reinforces for them, that tells them the feeling. So they agreed that this is the word that would create the feeling for them. But it could be any word. I want you to know that. So I'm explaining this now, and we'll explain it again as we go through the film.
Over 8 years, the center has successfully treated more than 180 types of illnesses, including bladder cancer.
看到了没有？就是在这个膀胱三角球的左侧有和一个压弧，这么一个。发气，各位老师，咱们一块用力量发气。
遥控的听人哗哗哗三三哗三哗三哗三哗三哗三，小吧哗三哗三哗三哗三，看那个看得下去。
一下就彻底散
放松，你放松啊，老师在这儿，小了，站正，好，没了，再站正，没了，好，没了，站，没了，好，没了，上，再站正，消出场，没了，把场打破，没了，好了，没了，好了，哎，不好意思，
能看出来，这是您
几秒，
这边是能放下来。那个就那种还往前走，那个不像。
上来，好，没了。
In the Western way of thinking, modern science says this is a miracle because they do not understand the field that connects everything, and they do not understand the language that speaks to that field. But once we understand, that is no longer a miracle, that is a technology. And you listen to the chant. Wa sa 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 sa. Okay, the word that they are using, wa sa, loosely translated, means already happened. It's already done. In their mind and in their heart, they're coming from the place that the healing has already happened. Not that it's going to happen, and not that it's about to happen, or that it's a long, slow happening, that it has already happened. And this is important, because the field of energy that we are about to discuss is a mirror. It reflects our feeling of what we are experiencing in the moment. So if our belief is that our healing is about to happen, or that our perfect relationship will come to us someday, or that our abundance in the bank will happen someday, the field will keep reflecting someday, because it is open-ended. There is no outcome. There is no conclusion. This is a very subtle, very powerful understanding of how this field works. This field that we're about to discuss now, the divine matrix, is a field that mirrors now, not in the future, not in the past, this moment. So what we choose to experience in our lives, we must first feel in our hearts as if it has already happened.
What we choose to experience in our lives, we must feel in our hearts as if it has already happened. Wow, that's just mind-blowing. You're hurting yourself or you're healing yourself. It's truly your choice. Thanks for watching. Okay, that's it for hurting or healing, but stay tuned for my next documentary adventure, Fuck Cancer.